The ship called Horizon's Edge came out of faster-than-light travel with a soft hum. Through the wide windows, the massive space station known as Nexus hung in the darkness like a city made of light. It was the center of all galactic politics. 12 alien species had built it together over 1,000 years. Now it served as the meeting place for the Galactic Council, the most powerful group of beings in known space. Park. Duan stood at the window and watched the station grow larger as their ship approached. He was 53 years old, with gray hair at his temples and a calm face that rarely showed emotion. He wore the simple black uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, with no medals or decorations. Nothing about him seemed special or dangerous. His assistant, Kim Yuna, walked up beside him. She was young, only 28, with sharp eyes and a quick mind. She held a datapad and scrolled through the day's schedule. "Ambassador, we dock in 15 minutes, she said. "The Council has arranged quarters for us on level 47. The first meeting is tomorrow morning." Duan nodded slowly. "How many species will attend?" "All 12 Council members will be present. They seem very eager to speak with us." Duan almost smiled at that. Eager was one word for it. The truth was simpler and darker. The alien species of the Council were afraid. Humanity had spread too fast. In just 200 years, humans had gone from a single planet to controlling 47 worlds across the Outer Rim. They built colonies where other species said life was impossible. They adapted to harsh environments. They bred quickly, and most troubling of all, they did not ask permission. The Council had summoned humanity to answer for this growth. But Duan knew what this meeting really was. It was a trial, and the verdict had already been decided. He thought about his wife, Lee Sun-hee, back on Earth. She had kissed him goodbye at the spaceport in Busan, her hands holding his face gently. "Come back to me," she had said. "Whatever happens, come back." He had promised her he would. It was a promise he intended to keep. The ship docked with a soft click of magnetic locks. Duan straightened his uniform and walked toward the exit. Behind him came the rest of his team, 12 diplomats and aides who had trained for years for this moment. They were good people, brave people. None of them knew the full truth about why the Council had really called this meeting, but Duan knew. He always knew. The airlock opened, and they stepped onto Nexus Station. The air smelled strange. A mix of different atmospheres blended together so that all species could breathe. The corridor was wide and tall, built to fit creatures of many sizes. Lights of different colors marked paths to different sections. A group of aliens waited to greet them. At the front stood a tall creature with 4 eyes and blue-gray skin. His name was Vethener, and he was the current leader of the Galactic Council. He wore robes of deep purple, the color of his species' royalty. "Ambassador Park," Vethener said. His voice was smooth but cold, like ice wrapped in silk. "Welcome to Nexus Station. Humanity honors us with your presence." Duan bowed his head slightly. "Council Leader Vethener, thank you for receiving us. We hope these talks will bring understanding between our peoples." Vethener's 4 eyes blinked one after another. It was a sign of amusement among his kind. "Yes, understanding. That is what we all want." The alien turned and led them through the station. Other species stopped to watch the humans pass. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. A few looked at them with open hatred. Yuna walked close to Duan and spoke quietly. "They don't seem happy to see us." "Would you be happy," Duan replied, "if a new family moved into your neighborhood and built their house bigger than yours in half the time?" Yuna considered this. "I suppose not. Fear makes people do dangerous things. Remember that in the days to come." Their quarters were comfortable but simple. Duan noticed the security cameras in every corner. He noticed the locks on the doors could be controlled from outside. He noticed the walls were thick enough to block communication signals. It was not a guest room. It was a cage with nice furniture. That night, Duan sat alone in his room after the others had gone to sleep. He pulled out a small photograph from his pocket. It showed him and Sun-hee on their wedding day, 25 years ago. She was laughing in the picture. He was smiling, truly smiling, in a way he rarely did anymore. Before Sun-He, he had been a different man. Before the peace treaties and the diplomatic corps, before the marriage and the quiet life in Busan, he had been something that no file officially recorded, the Reaper Division. That was what they had called his unit. A ghost team that did not exist. They went into impossible situations and did impossible things. They ended wars before they began by removing the people who would start them. Their methods were classified above any government level. Do-won had commanded that unit for 15 years. He had personally trained every operative. He had led them into the darkness again and again. And he had done things that he could never wash from his hands, no matter how many years passed. Sun-He had saved him from that life. She had seen something human in him when he had forgotten what being human meant. She had made him promise to leave the killing behind. He had kept that promise for 15 years. He had become a diplomat instead of an assassin. He learned to use words instead of weapons. He found that building peace gave him more satisfaction than breaking people ever had. But the skills never left. The training never faded. Deep inside him, buried under layers of treaties and handshakes and peaceful intentions, the Reaper still waited. It slept, but it did not die. Do-won put the photograph away and closed his eyes. He hoped this mission would end peacefully. He hoped the council would be reasonable. He hoped he could return home to Sun-He without breaking his promise. But hope was a fragile thing. And he had learned long ago that fragile things rarely survived first contact with reality. In the morning, he would face the Galactic Council. They saw him as a simple diplomat from a young species. They saw humanity as a problem to be solved. They did not know what slept inside the quiet man with gray temples. They were about to find out. The negotiations had gone badly from the first moment. For 3 days. Do-won sat across from the Galactic Council and listened to their demands. They wanted humanity to give up 12 colony worlds. They wanted limits on human population growth. They wanted human ships to stay within borders that the Council would draw. They wanted humanity to kneel. Do-won refused. He did so politely, with careful words and diplomatic language, but he refused all the same. Earth cannot accept these terms, he said on the 3rd morning. We have built those colonies with our own hands. Our people have died making those worlds livable. You cannot ask us to abandon them. Vethener sat at the head of the council table, his 4 eyes narrowing with anger. Around him, representatives from 11 other species whispered to each other. Do-won could see the frustration building in the room like storm clouds gathering. Ambassador Park Vethener said slowly, I do not think you understand your position. Humanity is young. You have been traveling between stars for only 200 years. The species in this room have existed for thousands of years, some for millions. We have seen young species rise and fall. We know what happens when they grow too fast. What happens? Do-won asked calmly. They become dangerous. They threaten the peace that we have built, and so they must be controlled. Vethener leaned forward. One way or another, Yuna sat beside Do-won, her hands tight on her datapad. She could feel the threat in those words. The other human diplomats shifted nervously in their seats, but Do-won's expression did not change. He had faced threats before. He had faced death before. A politician's warning meant nothing to him. The council should remember, Do-won said, that humanity did not come to the stars looking for war. We came looking for new homes. We came with open hands. If you close the door on peace, you may not like what comes through the window. Vethener stood up abruptly. This session is over. We will continue tomorrow. The council members filed out of the room. Do-won watched them go, his face still calm, but his mind working quickly. Something was wrong. Vethener had given up too easily. A politician like him did not simply walk away from a negotiation, unless he had already decided that negotiation was pointless. Ambassador Yuna said quietly, I don't like this. Neither do I have the team pack their things tonight. Be ready to leave quickly if needed. Yuna nodded and hurried off to warn the others. Do-won remained in his seat, alone in the empty council chamber. He looked around at the curved walls, the high ceiling, the doors on every side. He counted the entrances. He measured the distances. He noted where cover could be found if shooting started. Old habits. They never truly died. That night, Doan could not sleep. He lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about Sun-hee. She would be tending her garden now, back in Busan. She grew roses and vegetables side by side, refusing to choose between beauty and practicality. That was who she was. That was why he loved her. He had told her once about the Reaper division. He had expected her to run away, to look at him with fear and disgust. Instead, she had taken his hands in hers and looked into his eyes. That was who you were, she had said. It is not who you must always be. You can choose differently. Hey, she had given him that choice. She had given him the strength to take it. The morning came too quickly. Doan dressed in his diplomatic uniform and led his team back to the council chamber. The hallways seemed quieter than usual. The aliens they passed looked away too quickly. The trap was obvious. Doan could smell it in the air. They entered the chamber. The council members were already seated. Vethener stood at the front, and this time he was smiling. Ambassador Park, the alien leader said, thank you for joining us. Before we continue our discussion, there is a small matter to address. The doors behind the human delegation slammed shut. Locks clicked into place with heavy sounds, and then armed guards poured into the room from hidden entrances on every side. 42 soldiers. Doan counted them in a single glance. They wore heavy armor and carried energy weapons. They moved with the precision of trained killers. Within seconds, every human diplomat was surrounded. Yuna stepped back in alarm. One of the guards struck her with the back of his weapon, and she fell to the floor with a cry of pain. Other diplomats were forced to their knees, weapons pressed against their heads. Doan stood still. What is the meaning of this? He asked. His voice was quiet, controlled. Vethener walked toward him slowly, his purple robes flowing. The meaning is simple, Ambassador. Your species has refused to cooperate. You have refused to accept your proper place beneath us. So we must take a different approach. Pulled out a datapad and held it toward Doan. You will sign the subjugation accords. You will surrender all human colonies to council control. You will accept permanent limits on your population and technology. And you will do this now, in front of witnesses. Doan did not look at the datapad. He looked at Vethener. And if I refuse, then your delegation dies. All of them, and we will tell the galaxy that humans attacked us first. We will say that we acted in self-defense. No one will question us. No one will believe your version of events. Vethenar's 4 eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. You are alone here, Ambassador. You have no power. You have no choice. Doan looked around the room. He saw his people on their knees. He saw Yuna lying on the floor, groaning in pain. He saw the guards with their weapons ready, their fingers on triggers. He thought of Sun-hee. He thought of his promise. Then he looked back at Vethener, and something changed in his eyes. The warmth disappeared. The diplomacy faded. What remained was cold, empty, and absolutely deadly. I will give you one chance, Doan said softly. Let us go now, and I will forget this happened. Vethener laughed. The sound filled the chamber, and other council members joined in. The guards relaxed slightly, amused by this small human making demands. Doan nodded slowly. He had expected this answer. He had hoped for a different one, but he had expected this. Very well, he said, and then he moved. The first guard died before anyone understood what was happening. Doan moved like water, like shadow, like something that existed between one heartbeat and the next. His hand shot out and struck the nearest guard in the throat. The alien made a choking sound and collapsed, his weapon falling from his grip. Doan caught the weapon before it hit the floor. The second guard tried to raise his rifle. Doan was already inside his reach, twisting the weapon away and driving his elbow into the creature's face. Bone cracked. The guard fell backward into 2 of his companions. 3 seconds had passed. 3 guards were down. The chamber exploded into chaos. Guards shouted orders in a dozen languages. Weapons hummed to life. Energy bolts flew through the air, burning holes in walls and furniture, but they could not hit Doan. He was never where they aimed. He flowed through the room like smoke, using guards as shields, turning their own weapons against them. Every movement was precise, economical, deadly. There was no wasted motion. There was no hesitation. This was not fighting. This was art. This was the craft of death practiced by a master. Guard. Commander Thexul watched in horror as his soldiers fell one by one. He was a veteran of many battles. He had trained for years to earn his position, but he had never seen anything like this. The human moved too fast. He knew where attacks were coming before they arrived. He turned strength against itself, used momentum as a weapon, found vulnerabilities that should not have existed. Thexul reached for the emergency panel on the wall. His clawed hands slammed down on the button, and heavy doors crashed shut over every entrance. Emergency locks engaged with loud clicks. The chamber was now sealed. "You're trapped now, human," Thexul growled, drawing his ceremonial blade. "Nowhere to run." Doan paused in the middle of the room. Bodies lay around him in a circle. He was breathing slightly harder, but his expression had not changed. Those cold, empty eyes turned toward the guard commander. "I was not planning to run," Doan said. He held an energy blade now, taken from one of the fallen guards. The blue light hummed in the air. He had not used it yet. He had killed 12 guards with his bare hands. Now he began using the blade. The remaining guards attacked together. Trying to overwhelm him with numbers, it did not help. Doan wove between them like a dancer, and everywhere he passed, bodies fell. He cut through armor as if it were paper. He found gaps in defenses that the guards themselves did not know existed. Thexul charged at him with a roar, swinging his ceremonial blade in a wide arc. Doan sidestepped easily, almost lazily. His own blade came up in a short, efficient stroke. The guard commander looked down at the wound in his chest. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He fell to his knees and then face forward onto the floor. Silence fell over the chamber. It had been less than 2 minutes since the first guard died. 42 trained soldiers had entered this room. None remained standing. Doan stood in the middle of the carnage, the energy blade still humming in his hand. His black diplomatic uniform was torn in places, and there was blood on his face, but most of it was not his own. He had taken a few hits, absorbed a few blows, but nothing that would slow him down. He had not wanted this. He had spent 15 years trying to be something other than a killer. He had built a new life, a peaceful life, with Sunheed by his side. But they had given him no choice. They had threatened his people. They had hurt Yuna. They had tried to make humanity kneel, and the Reaper did not kneel. The Reaper never had. A small groan came from nearby. Doan turned and saw Yuna pushing herself up from the floor. She blinked, confused, and looked around the chamber. Her eyes went wide as she saw the bodies, the destruction, the blood. Then she looked at Doan, and something in her expression shifted. Fear, yes, but also understanding. Also respect, Ambassador, she whispered. Doan deactivated the energy blade and walked toward her. He knelt beside her and checked her injuries. The blow had bruised her badly, but nothing was broken. "Can you walk?" he asked. His voice was gentle now, but his eyes still held that cold emptiness. "I think so." "What? What happened? How did you—" "Not now. We need to leave." He helped her to her feet. Around them, the other human diplomats were rising from the floor, shaking with shock but unharmed. The guards had not had time to hurt them. They had been too busy dying. Doan looked toward the council seats. Most of the alien representatives had fled through back exits when the fighting started. But Vethener remained, cowering behind his ornate chair. His 4 eyes were wide with terror. Doan walked toward him slowly. Each step echoed in the silent chamber. Vethener pressed himself against the wall, his purple robes stained with the blood of his fallen guards. "Please," the council leader whimpered. "Please, I was only doing what the council decided. It was not my choice alone. We can negotiate. We can find a compromise." Doan stopped in front of him. He looked down at the alien who had ordered this ambush, who had planned to murder his people and blame humanity for it. For a long moment, he said nothing. The silence stretched like a knife. Then Duan spoke, his voice flat and cold. You should have listened when I gave you the chance. You should have let us go. He reached down and grabbed Vethinor by the front of his robes, lifting him off the ground with one hand. The alien was larger than him, heavier than him, but fear had robbed him of all strength. Remember this moment? Duan said. Remember what one human did to your finest soldiers. And understand that back on Earth, there are thousands more like me. Worse than me. He dropped Vethinor to the floor. The council leader collapsed in a heap, trembling. We are leaving now, Duan said. You will not stop us. And when we are gone, you will think very carefully about what happens next. He turned and walked back to his people. Yuna stood waiting for him, leaning on another diplomat for support. The others looked at him with new eyes, seeing him for the first time as he truly was. Move, Duan said. We have a ship to catch. They walked out of the chamber of death, leaving the broken council and their broken plans behind them. The sealed doors posed no problem. Duan had taken Nexal security codes from his body as they moved through the station toward their ship. Duan allowed himself one thought about Sun-He. He had broken his promise today. He had become the Reaper again. He hoped she would understand. He hoped she would still be waiting for him. When he returned home, the horizon's edge tore through space at maximum speed. Behind them, Nexus Station grew smaller until it was just another point of light among millions. But Duan knew that distance meant nothing. The Council had ships. The Council had weapons. And the Council would want revenge. Yuna sat in the medical bay while a doctor treated her injuries. The other diplomats gathered in the main cabin, speaking in hushed, frightened voices. They had seen something today that changed everything they believed about their ambassador. Duan stood alone on the bridge, looking out at the stars. His hands were clean now, washed of the blood that had covered them an hour ago. But he could still feel it. He would always feel it. Captain Beak Jisiok approached him carefully. The ship's commander was a steady woman in her 40s, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen many strange things during her years in space. Ambassador, she said, we have a problem. Only one. The Council is broadcasting to every ship and station in this sector. They're saying that we attacked them without cause. They're calling us terrorists. They're asking every species to stop us, capture us, or destroy us. Duan had expected this. It was exactly what Vethinor had planned from the beginning. Kill the human delegation, blame humanity, use the incident as an excuse for war. The plan had failed. But the story could still work. We need to tell our side, Duan said, before their version becomes the only truth. Captain Beak nodded. I can boost our transmission to reach every frequency the Council monitors. Every ship, every station, every planet with a receiver will hear us. Do it. 10 minutes later, Duan stood in front of the ship's main camera. Behind him, the ruined council chamber played on a screen. Footage that their security team had managed to capture during the chaos. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Energy burns marked the walls. Yuna insisted on standing beside him, despite her injuries. The other diplomats stood in the background, battered but alive. Captain Beak held up her hand. Broadcasting in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Duan looked into the camera. His face was calm, but something burned behind his eyes. My name is Park Duan. I am the ambassador of Earth to the Galactic Council. What I'm about to tell you is the truth. He paused, letting his words sink in across 100 worlds. 3 days ago, my delegation came to Nexus Station to negotiate in good faith. We came hoping for peace. We came with open hands and honest intentions. The Council responded with an ambush. The footage behind him showed guards pouring into the chamber, weapons raised. It showed diplomats forced to their knees. It showed Yuna falling after being struck. They planned to murder us, Duan continued. All of us. Then they planned to blame humanity for attacking first. They wanted an excuse for war. They wanted to subjugate our species before we became too strong to control. He stepped closer to the camera. They failed. Not because of any great fleet or powerful weapon, but because they underestimated what a human being is capable of when you threaten everything he loves. On Earth, millions of people watched the broadcast. In military headquarters in Seoul, Admiral Choi Tae-sin stared at the screen with her hands clasped behind her back. She had served under Do-won in the old days before the peace. She knew exactly what he was, and exactly what he had done in that chamber. "God help them," she whispered. They woke him up. In a small house outside Busan, Lee Soon-hae sat in front of her television. Her garden tools lay forgotten on the table beside her. Tears ran down her cheeks as she watched her husband speak to the galaxy. She had always known this day might come. She had always known that the peaceful life they built together sat on a foundation of violence. Do-won had tried so hard to be someone different, to be the man she believed he could be, but some things could not be buried forever. On the screen, Do-won continued his message. Humanity did not survive the long dark of our early centuries by being weak. We did not crawl out of our caves and reach for the stars by giving up. We did not endure ice ages and plagues and world wars by accepting defeat. His voice grew harder, colder. We are the children of those who refuse to die. Every human alive today carries within them 1,000 generations of survivors. We adapted. We evolved. We fought. And we are still here. He looked directly into the camera, and those who watched felt as if he were looking directly at them. I am just one man. I am old. I am tired. I wanted only peace. But when you threatened my people, I became something else. Imagine, if you can, what happens when you threaten our families. Imagine what we become when our children are in danger. The broadcast signal reached farther and farther across space. Council ships picked it up. Military commanders watched with growing unease. Political leaders whispered to each other in concerned voices. The Council wanted humanity on its knees, Do-won said. They should have asked themselves a simple question first. In all of our history, in all the millions of years of human existence, has anyone ever successfully made us kneel? He let the question hang in the air. The answer is no. Not plague. Not famine. Not war. Not the cold emptiness of space. Nothing has broken us. Nothing ever will. Behind him, Yuna straightened, despite her pain. The other diplomats raised their heads. They were afraid, yes, but they were also proud. The Council wants war, Do-won finished. They should know what they are asking for. We do not want it. We never wanted it. But if you force our hand, if you give us no choice, we will fight. And we will not stop until the threat to our people is ended. He took a breath. This is not a threat. It is a promise. Leave us in peace, and we will be your greatest friends. Harm our families, and we will become your worst nightmare. The broadcast ended. Do-won stood still for a long moment, then turned away from the camera. Captain Beak approached him quietly. That message will reach Earth in about 6 hours. It will reach every Council world within a day. Good, let them watch it. Let them think about it. Let them understand what they almost started. The captain hesitated. Ambassador, what happens now? Do-won looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, his wife was waiting for him. Somewhere out there, his home was waiting. Now, he said, we go home, and we prepare for whatever comes next. The galaxy had not stopped talking about the broadcast in the days that followed. Do-won's message spread to every corner of known space. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly knew the name Park Do-won. Military analysts studied the footage from the Council chamber, trying to understand how one man had defeated 42 elite soldiers in less than 2 minutes. They found no satisfactory answer. The human had simply been faster, smarter, and more deadly than anything they had ever seen. The Galactic Council fractured almost immediately. 3 species withdrew from the alliance within the first week, declaring that they wanted no part of a war against humanity. 2 more demanded that Vethanor resign from his position. Intelligence reports began circulating about other humans with similar backgrounds. Other members of the supposedly disbanded Reaper Division, who still lived in human space. The reports were terrifying. Park Do-won, it seemed, was not unique. He was not even the most dangerous dot on Earth. The reaction was different. Fear mixed with pride. Some called Doan a hero who had saved his people. Others called him a monster who had ended any hope of peaceful relations with the council. The debates raged on news channels and in government buildings. But in the military, there was only cold, efficient preparation. Admiral Choi Tae-sin recalled every reserve officer. Shipyards worked around the clock, building new vessels. Weapon systems that had been mothballed for decades were brought back online. Humanity had hoped for peace, but they were ready for war. Doan arrived home 3 weeks after the incident. The Horizon's Edge landed at the Busan spaceport under heavy military escort. Crowds had gathered to see him, some cheering, some silent, some holding signs that called him a murderer. He ignored them all. He walked through the spaceport, through the security checkpoints, through the crowd of reporters shouting questions. His eyes searched for only one person. Sun-hee was waiting at the edge of the crowd, standing apart from everyone else. She wore a simple blue dress, the kind she always wore when working in her garden. Her hair had more gray in it than when he left. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying for days. Doan stopped in front of her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I broke my promise," he said finally. His voice was rough, exhausted. "I became him again. The person I swore I would never be." Sun-hee looked at him. She looked at the tired lines on his face, the weight in his shoulders, the guilt that hung over him like a shroud. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. "You protected your people," she said against his chest. "That is the only promise that ever mattered." Doan held her tightly and allowed himself, for the first time in weeks, to feel something other than cold emptiness. She was warm. She was real. She was his home. 1 month later, he returned to Nexus Station. This time, the situation was very different. The human fleet hung in space behind his diplomatic vessel, dozens of warships arranged in perfect formation. Admiral Choi's flagship, the Undying Soul, dominated the center of the formation. Its weapons were not aimed at anyone, but their presence sent a clear message. Humanity was done being underestimated. Doan walked into the council chamber with the same calm stride he had used before. Yuna walked beside him, fully recovered from her injuries. Behind them came a team of diplomats and military advisors. The chamber had been repaired. New furniture replaced what had been destroyed. Fresh paint covered the energy burns on the walls. But nothing could erase what had happened here. The council representatives watched him enter. Only 8 species remained in the alliance now. 4 had left, unwilling to face what humanity might become if pushed further. Vethener was gone, removed from power by his own people. A new leader sat in his place, a smaller alien with cautious eyes. "Ambassador Park," the new leader said, "thank you for agreeing to return. We wish to discuss terms for peace." Doan nodded and took his seat at the negotiating table. He had prepared for this moment carefully. "Before we begin," he said, "let me be clear about a few things. Humanity is not here to ask for anything. We are not here to beg. We are here because we believe that peace is better than war. But we will accept nothing less than full recognition of our rights as a sovereign species." The council representatives exchanged glances. None of them argued. The negotiations lasted 3 days. By the end, every human demand had been met. The colonies would remain under human control. No limits would be placed on population or technology. Humanity would have a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, with full voting rights. And one new clause was added to galactic law, proposed by the Council itself. It would be studied and discussed for centuries to come. Let no species mistake human patience for human weakness. The Treaty of Nexus was signed on the 4th day. Representatives from 8 species placed their marks on the document, followed by Park Doan's careful signature. When it was done, the new council leader approached him privately. "May I ask you something, Ambassador?" Doan nodded. "In the chamber that day, when you faced our guards, you could have killed Council Leader Vethener. You had every reason to. Why did you spare him?" Doan considered the question for a moment. "Because I did not come here to kill anyone. I came here to build peace. Every death in that chamber was a failure, even if it was a necessary one." He paused. And because my wife asked me to be better than what I was trained to be, I try to honor that request whenever I can. The alien leader nodded slowly. Your species is very strange, Ambassador. You are capable of such violence, yet you choose peace. You could destroy us, yet you prefer to trade with us. I do not fully understand you. Dewan almost smiled. That is probably a good thing. He left Nexus Station that evening, returning to his ship for the journey home. The fleet escorted him out of Council space, then peeled away to return to their patrol routes. The horizon's edge continued alone toward Earth. Yuna found him standing at the window again, watching the stars pass by. Ambassador, she said, may I ask you something personal? You may? What happens now? For you, I mean. Dewan was silent for a long moment. I go home to my wife. I help her in the garden. I try to remember what it feels like to be at peace. He turned to look at her. And I hope that no one ever forces me to become the Reaper again. Do you think they will? I do not know. Humans have been fighting since we climbed down from the trees. It seems to be part of our nature. He looked back at the stars. But it is not the only part. We are also capable of great love, great kindness, great sacrifice. The Council only saw the violence because that is what they threatened us with. They never gave us a chance to show them the other side. Yuna nodded slowly. Maybe now they will. Maybe. The ship flew on through the endless night. Somewhere ahead, Earth waited. Somewhere ahead, Sunny waited. Dewan allowed himself to hope that the peace he had fought for would last. He allowed himself to imagine a future where humans and aliens worked together, building something greater than either could achieve alone, but he did not put away his training. He did not forget the skills that had saved his people, because he had learned a truth that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. The most dangerous creatures were not those who loved violence. They were those who loved peace with all their hearts, who wanted nothing more than to live quietly with the people they loved, who would do anything to protect that peace, anything at all. The Reaper slept again, buried deep within the Diplomat's gentle smile, but he was always there, always waiting, always ready, and the galaxy would never forget it.